This girl is in an elevator, giving the camera a quick glance. She presses herself against the corner of the elevator to get out of the camera's sight, then reaches into her clothes like she's searching for something. She pulls out 2 eggs. She crushes the eggshells against the elevator handrail and quickly puts the whole eggs in her mouth. Even though she's so hungry she can't resist eating an egg, she doesn't want the camera to catch her. Young is the girl in the elevator of a high-end shopping mall. She's the elevator operator for the mall's customers. She wears high heels and stands in the elevator for hours every day. She has to be enthusiastic and always smile. It's rare that the elevator is empty so she can relax a little bit. At 5 feet 7 inches with long legs, she stood all day and her legs have lost all feeling. But as soon as someone gets on the elevator, even if she's still choking on the egg, she has to pretend like nothing's wrong. This guy seems to sense something is off. He sniffs around her like a dog. Did you just fart? The person who just got in the elevator is her incredibly strict boss, Manager Park. He immediately starts yelling angrily, "You're not allowed to be lazy, eat, or fart in the elevator." He noticed the strange smell in the elevator and immediately wants to find Young. No matter how much Young tries to explain, he doesn't want to listen. He keeps yelling at her and giving her a condescending look. This whole situation makes Young incredibly angry. But even though she wants to cry, she has to keep a smile on her face. But what makes her even angrier is that when they're about to leave work, Manager Park, Young's boss, walks into the women's locker room. He's never knocked before. He uses his position of power, always claiming it's an internal meeting, to constantly criticize the girls about their work performance. He then uses the excuse of helping them fix their posture and etiquette to touch them inappropriately. Even though everyone is disgusted by his behavior, they're too afraid to say anything because they need the money. In South Korea, a country with a stagnant economy, for girls without an education like them, getting a job that doesn't require factory work is considered a blessing. They are beautiful, but they have no skills. They regret not studying hard when they were younger, but it's too late now. All they can do is bow their heads and listen to this old man's constant chatter. Only Young dares to disagree with him, which is why he always picks on her. But that's not all. In those days, girls from poor families were considered a kind of disaster. After work, he would choose obedient girls to go out singing and dancing with the company's clients. Although they were all reluctant, they gritted their teeth and danced. They thought that this would be enough to keep their jobs. But unexpectedly, Manager Park suddenly announced that the department store decided to get rid of the elevator operator positions. They would be laid off in phases, so everyone needed to voluntarily resign. This was like a bolt out of the blue for these girls who had no other skills. Those born after 1990 probably don't know that in the 1990s, elevator operators were a standard feature in shopping malls. But with the development and reform of society, it's rare to see elevator operators like that anymore. Now, Manager Park asks them to write a list of colleagues they want to see fired. Young feels it's unreasonable that the company didn't give them any warning before deciding to lay off people, and they even used this method to hurt their friendships. She tears up the list. Manager Park doesn't say a word. He just slaps her. He slapped her hard, and that slap completely woke Young up, leading her to make a life-changing decision. It turns out that just a few days before, a well-known hair salon in Korea, the beauty expert of Queen Mary's beauty salon, had been looking for Young. She thought Young's body proportions, her looks, and aura were perfect for her requirements. She wanted to invite Young to participate in a beauty pageant, and she would help Young become Miss Korea. But Young thought she wasn't beautiful enough. President Ma was very confident and said that she had never been wrong about anyone before. In fact, several days ago, other beauty experts had come to find Young, but she had flatly refused them all. Although in high school, Young was the school beauty, with a tall figure and beautiful face, she had a secret she couldn't tell anyone. It made her feel very insecure and miserable, and she couldn't bring herself to speak. Young's encounter with President Ma probably started a few days before. On a crowded subway, a girl suddenly pulled down her jacket and took it off, revealing a bright blue swimsuit that stood out against the sea of dark jackets. "Okay, let's go," the girl said, the corners of her mouth curving up in a light, confident smile. Just as everyone wondered what she was going to do, she raised her arms, put them on her hips, and walked like a model. The men on the train couldn't help but crane their necks and stare at her, while the girls started whispering amongst themselves. But the girl acted like there was no one around her, her gaze unwavering. Only President Ma stood there with a serious expression. It turned out that the girl in the swimsuit strutting on the subway was the Miss Korea they were training. Confidence was displayed in a unique way. Her posture had to be perfect. Her walk had to be steady. Her standard smile had to reveal 18 teeth, but she absolutely couldn't show her lower teeth. Her back had to be straight, her chest slightly pushed forward, and every move had to be graceful. But under the protests of everyone around her, the girl couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. She ran through the crowd and out of the subway. This action made President Ma very disappointed. She was a former beauty queen, now the director of Queen Korea's beauty salon. She had personally nurtured many Miss Korea winners over the years. She could tell at a glance whether someone had the potential to be Miss Korea, and she could train many suitable candidates. Wherever there were beautiful people, President Ma would go there. She would search for her target, and when she saw someone, her gaze would sweep from head to toe. But ordinary beautiful girls wouldn't catch her eye. Today, President Ma happened to see a girl dancing on stage. Regardless of her features, her body proportions, the rhythm of her dance, and her ability to control the surrounding atmosphere, everything made President Ma very satisfied. The 8 centimeters high heels, 51 centimeters from the floor to the knee, 90 centimeters from the floor to the hip. Just looking at the silhouette, whether it's the shoulder width, the waist circumference, the hip circumference, or the ankle circumference, everything was perfect. This girl was young. She came here as a part-time dancer. If she could liven up the atmosphere, the owner would give her a little extra. President Ma finally regained her senses and quickly chased after Young, but she accidentally bumped into a drunk man and fell down. When she got up, Young had already gotten in a car and left. President Ma immediately ordered her secretary to investigate the information about the part-time dancer at the bar. The next day, she went to the shopping mall where Young worked and met her in the locker room. After introducing herself, President Ma got straight to the point and told Young that she highly valued her. She believed she had the ability to train her to be Miss Korea, but the prerequisite was a physical examination, which was to check if Young's physique met the Miss Korea standards. President Ma asked her to take off her clothes, and she should take off as much as she felt confident. After Young hesitated for a moment, she directly pulled down the zipper and took off her skirt. This action made President Ma feel like she was special. All the girls she had interviewed had taken off their tops first without exception, but Young took off her skirt first. Just as Young was about to take off her top, President Ma said that there was no need to see anymore. She had actually seen Young's true figure long ago. She asked her to take off her clothes just to test her intelligence and courage. She was very satisfied with Young's performance. President Ma hoped she could challenge herself and participate in the beauty pageant with her. Young had just seen President Ma off when she ran into her high school classmate, June. He said he was now the president of a large cosmetics company, and he came to find Young because he wanted to invite her to participate in a beauty pageant on Jeju Island. In fact, his company was about to collapse. He didn't want to be chased by creditors, and he wanted to win the prize money to save the company. So he turned to the high school beauty queen, the one who had experience in beauty pageants and was also his first love. Young and June's fate began in high school. Oh, here she come. All the boys in the class are rushing to the window. Young was the beauty queen recognized by all the male students in the school. At 5 feet 7 inches with long legs, every time she smiled, it was like a lotus flower blooming. As soon as Young appeared, all the male students in the school went crazy for her. Her dancing to the music made the boys shout even louder, scrambling to throw paper airplanes to try and win her attention. In an era without beautiful female influencers, seeing Young once was like taking a vitamin. The boys' shouts and whistles were like frenzied likes, and the paper airplanes fluttering in the wind were like gifs appearing on the screen during a live stream. They just hoped that the goddess would look at them once. If any boy's paper airplane was caught by Young, the 17-year-old June would have almost gotten an anxiety attack. His whole heart and body were trembling as he relentlessly pursued her. Soon, they became a couple. But after graduating from high school, June was admitted to a prestigious university. Young, on the other hand, had to work as an elevator operator. June's mother felt that Young was a toad trying to eat a swan. She tried to separate them. June listened to his mother and decided to break up with Young. In addition, June's old classmate from the investment company, Lee, had said that if any female employee in his company could win the Miss Korea title, he would invest all the money in June's cosmetics company. June decided to go to Jeju Island to participate in the competition, both to get the $5 million prize money and to pay off his debts. This could be considered a warm-up for the national competition in Seoul. But June lied to Young, saying that his company was not short of money, it was just about nurturing new talent. He promised to cover all of Young's expenses. Furthermore, he would give her all the $5 million prize money from the competition. His goal was to train her to become Miss Korea, hoping to continue their unfinished relationship. Young wanted to escape her current predicament, so she decided to participate in this competition. But the person she chose was the more experienced and famous one, President Ma. After arriving at the registration venue, she realized that the entire building was President Ma's beauty salon. But the girls who came to register for the competition were like a sea of beauties. Each girl, if standing alone, would be considered a goddess by any man. Young, on the other hand, had to work as an elevator operator before she even graduated high school. Her education, knowledge, work, and family all made her feel a bit insecure. But what really made her feel self-conscious was her body. Although she was tall, she was dissatisfied with her bust. Seeing other girls so outstanding, and then looking at herself, flat as a television screen, she ultimately lacked the courage to go for the interview. Young immediately turned around and left, choosing to give up. After returning home, Young called her best friend. She said that she had decided to undergo medical intervention to change her bust size. She would then go to President Ma's beauty salon and challenge herself with the Miss Korea competition. For someone her age, this was her last chance. But first, she had to win the selection competition on Jeju Island, so she could get the money for surgery. She submitted her leave application to Manager Park, and then they took a flight to Jeju Island. But Young had never been on a plane before, and she was so nervous that her hands were trembling. And what happened next made everyone on the plane turn their heads towards her. As soon as she got on the plane, Young learned that at an altitude of 10,000 meters, some materials would expand. June, who was sitting next to her, immediately reminded her to swallow, which could reduce the pressure in her ears. But Young was still in pain. June immediately held her ears tightly, and only when the plane stabilized did Young gradually stop screaming. She asked June if she had made a fool of herself. June told her that everyone was like that the first time they flew. Soon, they arrived in Jeju Island. The vast coastline, the clear blue water, and the beautiful roads lined with tall green trees. This was also the first time Young had left her home in over a decade. It was also the first time she had seen the sea. But the three partners sitting behind them suddenly realized that they had forgotten to bring their performance costumes. Fortunately, Young said she would take care of it. They breathed a sigh of relief. To save money, they lied to Young, saying that they couldn't book a hotel and asked her to stay in a public bathhouse. Their competitor, on the other hand, was enjoying herself in a luxurious hotel. Young used cucumbers as a face mask. Meanwhile, her competitor had her own personal masseuse. Rehearsals were about to begin. Young didn't expect to meet President Ma in the bathroom. It turned out that President Ma was invited to be a judge for this competition. But she immediately lowered her voice and told Young not to let anyone know they knew each other. It would cause misunderstandings. Furthermore, no matter how well Young performed, she would give her 0 points. If Young could win the competition with the lowest score, then she would be qualified to join President Ma's beauty salon. Young was initially very confident, but she was now heavily discouraged. But she didn't expect the next blows to be even more suffocating. In the evening, June said he wanted to take her out for dinner. He took her to a very luxurious hotel. His main goal was for her to entertain a major sponsor. But Young had no idea about this arrangement beforehand. June also told Young the truth. Only when he trained her to become Miss Korea could he get the investment from this major sponsor. Young couldn't believe that her ex-boyfriend would take her to a hotel for his own benefit, wanting her to do something immoral. Young immediately stood up, ready to leave. At this moment, the sponsor June mentioned pushed the door open and entered. It was her senior, Lee, who had secretly loved her for years. At this point, June made an excuse and ran out. Inside the room, Lee got straight to the point and said that if Young performed well tonight, he would be able to become her sponsor. Feeling insulted, Young immediately stood up and wanted to leave. But Lee mocked her, saying, "It's a pity that you have a beautiful appearance, but don't know how to use it." Young immediately told him that even if she was poor, as long as she saw his ugly and despicable face, she would feel disgusted. Lee continued to taunt her. Sold out by June and still oblivious? At this moment, June was sitting outside, his conscience finally getting the better of him, and he immediately rushed into the room, but he hoped Young would stay. After Young gave him a slap, she left. June sat down and poured Lee a drink as an apology. Young stood outside the hotel, sobbing uncontrollably. When June finished his drink, he rushed outside and called Young. But unexpectedly, Young appeared right after June, which surprised June. Young said she would continue participating in the competition. But the next day, when Young asked her best friend to go to the shopping mall to buy a hanbok, she ran into Manager Park by chance. Soon, Young received a call. Manager Park wanted to make her life unbearable. But the most urgent problem was that they didn't have performance costumes. They then saw the news about the rising gold price. They all looked at the previous creditor who came to collect debts, without saying a word. After patiently persuading him, they used the money from selling the gold necklace to buy performance costumes. At this time, Young also told June that she would go to the competition in Seoul with President Ma. Their relationship now was purely one of mutual use. June immediately apologized to her. He shouldn't have used Young as a bargaining chip. If she went with President Ma, his company would be completely finished. But Young turned around and left without looking back. Soon, the competition was about to begin. The contestants included university students and rich daughters. But the aura exuding from Young was not inferior to theirs. They had also marked Young as a flight attendant on her profile. As soon as she went on stage, she bowed 90 degrees. This special way of greeting made everyone feel very close to her. Although she felt a little nervous, her entire performance was not bad. Next was the singing and dancing stage. The famous singer was performing the song and dance that had become popular all over Asia in 1997, and the beauties were smiling and dancing behind her. For Young, who was good at dancing, this was clearly a gift from the universe. But unexpectedly at this moment, her high heels suddenly broke. She quickly regained her composure, ignoring the panic, and continued to dance. The judges in the audience saw this scene. By now, the entire heel was completely broken, but Young's expression remained calm. She tried to maintain her balance and insisted on continuing the performance. It turned out that before the competition started, her competitor had sneaked into the dressing room and tampered with Young's high heels. Her goal was to make her look foolish on stage, but she didn't expect Young to be able to persist. However, soon after, Young couldn't resist and fell, but she got up again. She relied on one leg and managed to keep her balance. Everyone in the audience was worried for her, but Young made a silent vow that she absolutely could not fall. She remembered the bitterness she had endured as an elevator operator, the ugly face of Manager Park. Even if her ankle was injured, even if there was no hope of winning, she didn't want to and couldn't give up halfway. This was a taboo in the industry. She tried to maintain her smile and continued to sway to the music, but she ended up falling heavily onto the stage floor. To everyone's surprise, Young decisively took off her high heels and continued dancing barefoot. This moved President Ma and everyone in the audience. At this moment, June rushed onto the stage, but Young wanted to persevere until the end of the performance. Perhaps she could still win the participation award. Unexpectedly, June directly carried her off the stage. He didn't understand the situation and misunderstood that Young was unprepared, which led to such a humiliating situation on stage. It also brought shame to his company. Young blamed him for arbitrarily taking her off stage. She had secretly borrowed a hanbok from the shopping mall for this competition and was caught. If she went back to the mall, she would definitely be fired and might even face criminal charges. She had no way out. Young said resolutely, "I will definitely become Miss Korea." But at this moment, President Ma suddenly appeared. This kind of strong desire for success, a poor girl with unwavering willpower and perseverance, was the person she was looking for. When Young left with President Ma, she wanted to turn back and look at June, but she absolutely couldn't turn her head. If she turned back, her entire life would be ruined, just like his. Your choices for the rest of your life will not only affect your own life, but could also directly determine your fate. But just as they were about to leave, June ran after them. He said he would still find Young. He wanted to prove himself with actions and make Young take the initiative to come back to him. Seeing him talk so confidently, President Ma didn't know whether to believe him or not, but I almost believed him anyway. Young returned to the department store and immediately submitted her resignation to Manager Park. She took all the blame for the hanbok being displayed at the mall and sincerely begged him not to punish her friend. Manager Park said he would let her go, but there was a condition. If she didn't agree, he would call the police. The next day, Young went to find Manager Park. She said she was willing to give Manager Park all her severance pay in exchange for her friend not being fired, but he didn't agree to this condition. Young knew very well what he wanted, but she would rather have things go away than people. Young gritted her teeth and added half a year's salary. At this point, the nasty old man revealed a satisfied smile. He turned around and patted Young on the shoulder as a sign of agreement. Next, Young would have to say goodbye to her job as an elevator operator and embark on her journey to become a beauty queen. She had wasted 10 years in this place. She didn't want to waste her limited youth any longer, but the problem that was bothering her was still unresolved. Every night, Young would take out a ruler to measure her bust to see if it was getting bigger. In another development, girls holding an iron rod between their legs for 15 minutes, planting banana trees for 20 minutes, and standing with their backs straight against the wall for 30 minutes were effective ways to improve leg shape, fight gravity, and prevent sagging. Jumping 200 times with knees bent can make the rough lines of the thighs more graceful. Women, once they reach their 20s, their pelvis will become curved, and their height will be affected. A firm, rounded butt makes you look taller, with a more balanced figure, and of course, more beautiful. The girls were all trying to use their glutes to move forward. This move effectively lifts the butt. Young was trying harder than anyone else. Only if she could win would President Ma keep her by her side. But Kim's progress was almost as fast as hers. Even though they sweated profusely every day, a large number of girls still flocked here for it. This place was known as the Whampoa Military Academy in the beauty industry, built by President Ma herself. With 7 beauty pageant wins under her belt, she not only had rich experience but also had some beauty secrets for the girls. Young, 25 years old, had no way out. At this age, she would no longer be eligible for the competition next year. Young only had a high school education and 10 years of experience as an elevator operator. This was her last chance to change her fate. But today, after the training session, President Ma suggested, because everyone has to be honest with each other in the coming days to promote team spirit, they should all bathe together. Young froze. What she had been worrying about had finally arrived. The other girls got up and went to the bathroom, but Young lay flat on the ground. She was extremely worried about what to do. The other girls had already taken their towels and entered the bathroom. Young looked down at herself and felt even more insecure. President Ma told her not to be ashamed. Young had no choice but to tell the truth. But at this moment, President Ma's former subordinate, now her sworn enemy, Director Yang, coincidentally brought her students to the dressing room. The two rivals were not on good terms when they met. and they quickly started arguing over something they disagreed on. The students from both sides kept mocking and laughing at each other. Director Yang also stood up and kept boasting about her impressive physique. She confidently said that hers was real, given by nature, and she even directly said that President Ma was fake from head to toe. Director Yang mocked President Ma, calling her a silicone woman. But President Ma replied, "It's 1997 now, the era of self-improvement." President Ma believes that in 10 or 20 years, plastic surgery will be seen as a trend. Only a pig like you would have nowhere to fix. At that time, you will be envious of other people's beauty after plastic surgery. At this moment, Director Yang saw Young standing behind President Ma. She pulled Young aside and looked her up and down, then mocked her. "Why didn't you make this part bigger?" She also pulled at Young's body, saying, "It needs to be bigger, it will look better." President Ma couldn't watch any longer. After pushing Director Yang away forcefully, she pulled Young towards herself. Immediately realizing something was wrong, she instantly understood what was going on. But she had to deal with this situation first. Soon, they went from arguing to pulling each other's hair. A group of women started brawling in the dressing room. They pulled hair, ripped towels, and scratched each other. After the brawl ended, President Ma called Young aside to talk. After she measured Young with her hands, she estimated the size. But to be precise to the centimeter, she needed to measure again. If it was too far off from the competition standards, it wouldn't matter if she continued to train. As soon as Young removed her towel, President Ma was immediately stunned. She took out a tape measure and began to carefully measure. What Young had always been too embarrassed to talk about, she was now forced to face. After President Ma finished measuring, she didn't say anything, her expression very grave. And then, what President Ma said left Young completely at a loss. Young's bust size was actually okay. But if she wanted to participate in the competition and win, she had to improve it through plastic surgery. In fact, Young had consulted with a plastic surgeon. But the surgery cost 5 million won, which she couldn't afford. But the Miss Korea competition was getting closer, and surgery also required a recovery period, so there was no time to delay. But at this moment, Jun saw the lease agreement for Young's house. He secretly went to find a real estate agent to sign a contract, then moved into Young's house. He wanted to take advantage of the situation and get Young first, and he even directly mentioned Young's desire to participate in the beauty pageant in front of her family. Moreover, he said that she would show off her body in a revealing swimsuit to all the men in the world. The older, traditional-minded elders were furious when they heard this. Young's mother had passed away. Her grandfather, uncle, and brother, 4 men, had raised her. Although they enjoyed watching swimsuit shows, and they couldn't help but drool over the beauty queen winners, they would never allow their daughter or niece to show off their bodies to others. They all hoped that Young could stabilize her job as an elevator operator, then find a good man, get married early, and have many children. This was what women like her should do. As a woman, you should accept your fate. Wearing revealing swimsuits and posing in public was not something a child from a well-educated family could do. They should know where to hide their faces. Her brother even bluntly said that she was as flat as a TV screen, and there was basically no chance for her. They even took out scissors and wanted to cut all of Young's hair off. At this moment, Jun rushed over to stop them. If Young had all her hair cut off, his plan would be shattered like a soap bubble. During the struggle, Jun's ear was accidentally injured. He took advantage of the situation and kept yelling, then dragged Young and quickly hid in the room. But the adults decided that no matter what, they had to stop Young from participating in the competition. Inside the room, Young was applying medicine to Jun's ear. His ear had a big wound like a pinprick, but he was so distressed that he clenched his fist and screamed. At this moment, President Ma arrived at Young's house. She knew that if Young relied on herself alone, she would never be able to convince her family. "Hello, everyone. I'm Ma Eri, Miss Korea 1967. The beauty queen they had only seen on TV was now standing right in front of them. The fierce men immediately transformed into adorable fanboys. President Ma took out an album full of photos of previous Miss Korea winners, all trained by her. They were once ordinary low-level employees, but after winning the Miss Korea title, some married into wealthy families and became the wives of tycoons. Others entered the entertainment industry and became famous actresses. Moreover, if it was written in their resumes that they were once Miss Korea, they would be prioritized when applying to any company. Being listed as a Miss Korea completely changed their lives, turning their destinies 180 degrees. Hearing this, Young's family realized that President Ma had come to persuade them. Although they felt that such a life was certainly amazing, they still didn't allow Young to participate in the competition. They just wanted Young to live a normal and peaceful life like everyone else. Then they asked President Ma to leave. At this moment, Young couldn't hold back and directly said, "I'm going to participate in that beauty pageant, and I'm going to get breast augmentation surgery." As soon as she finished speaking, Young's family was stunned. Jun was the first to object, saying, "What? How can you let someone touch your body with a scalpel?" Then he immediately turned to criticize President Ma. What kind of spell did you cast on Young? He also said, Young's bust size is already perfect. If she goes to the competition with you, she won't need breast augmentation to win. He also said, if Young dares to get breast augmentation, I will kill myself for her. Then they locked Young in a room and kept a strict watch, not allowing her to go out with President Ma. To get her body in shape, Young practiced the butt wiggle exercise for 1 kilometer to build 6-pack abs. She did 200 crunches to slim her thighs. She did 300 squats to increase her bust size. She did 400 push-ups. Because her God-given capital was so pitiful, other than plastic surgery, this was the only way to get her body more upright. Even while sleeping, Young was planting banana trees. The goal was to fight gravity and prevent sagging. At this moment, June suddenly walked in. Young told him to take care of himself and not to make things worse. She had decided to participate in the competition with President Ma. June was seriously saying nonsense to Young. He said that as long as Young joined his team, she basically wouldn't need surgery, and she could still win the championship. Young immediately told him to stay as far away from her as possible. If he had time to spare to chase girls like this, he might as well spend it dealing with his company. June said that he truly liked her, so he didn't want her to get surgery, as it would affect her body. This has nothing to do with whom she's competing with. Young told him to go back and take care of his company that was on the verge of collapse, and then come talk about love with her. Now that he was almost 30, with no money, no house, no car, and a bunch of debts, what was he going to use to win? Just his mouth? June said that only bad boys like him could attract girls' attention. The next day, Young went to the plastic surgery hospital. It just so happened that the hospital was running a free cosmetic surgery promotion. As long as she agreed to put her before and after surgery photos on their website for advertising purposes, they would waive the surgery fee of 5 million won. The hospital also said that they would never reveal the client's face. Young wanted to use this method to complete the surgery, but the doctor said that he had to conduct a careful examination first. This made Young a bit suspicious of his intentions. But to win the Miss Korea title, after taking a deep breath, she made her decision. The next day, June went directly to the plastic surgery hospital. He said again, if I take Young to the competition, she won't need surgery to win the championship. But President Ma said, she didn't kidnap Young. It's her decision who she wants to go to the competition with. Young said, as long as I can win the championship, I think all the effort and pain I have to go through is worth it. June told her, if you don't go with me, you'll definitely regret it. Then he turned and left angrily. But unexpectedly, he came to find Young again that evening, for the 3rd time. He said that he was confident he could help Young win the championship without surgery. Young sincerely advised him, I don't want to go with you because I don't want to harm you. Beauty pageants are not just about good looks. They also require skin, physique, styling, clothing, jewelry, even political background, hobbies, and the judges' evaluations, and so on. Others spend 10 to 20 million won to prepare for the competition. June, not only are you broke, but you're also an outsider in the industry. If you compete together, you'll probably be eliminated in the first round. June could only emphasize over and over again that she had to trust in his abilities. He didn't have money now because he was unlucky. He would definitely bring Young a happy life in the future. Young was so touched by his words that she shed tears. Although she was a little hesitant, she ultimately stuck to her previous decision. In the following days, Young practiced diligently. There was another person who was as persistent as she was, Kim. Although her beauty was slightly inferior to Young's, her body proportions, physique, and posture were much better than Young's. Moreover, she seemed very confident. When Young got home in the evening, she didn't dare to relax. She clenched chopsticks in her mouth to practice getting apple-cheeked skin. While she was introducing herself, June suddenly walked in. This time, he said that he would pay for Young to get breast augmentation surgery, but the condition was still that she had to cooperate with him. Then June took out a thick envelope. It turned out that he had mortgaged his old house to get the money. He just wanted to prove himself, to prepare for the final battle. Young didn't want to pay attention to him. After returning to her room, she continued her squats. Thinking about what June had done for her, Young felt a little touched. Early the next morning, Young called June out to have breakfast with her family. Her attitude towards him had changed 180 degrees. Later, as June was waiting for the bus, he suddenly realized that the money in the envelope was still with him. No wonder Young had been so kind to him this morning. It turned out that she still wanted to have that free breast augmentation surgery. No mistake, Young was strong. She didn't want to use someone else's money. Now she was lying on the operating table at the hospital. At this moment, June also rushed to the hospital. Then he directly put the money on the table. He couldn't stand Young using her own photos to get free surgery. He told the nurse to immediately delete all the photos taken before the surgery. But Young was already under general anesthesia. She gradually lost consciousness and didn't hear June calling her. Soon, Young came out of the operating room. June was extremely tense and anxiously asked her, "Were you scared? Did it hurt? I paid for it. Do you need to reconsider cooperating with me?" President Ma saw Young come out of the operating room so quickly and asked her, "What's going on?" Young immediately bowed and apologized to President Ma. It turned out that in the last moment before surgery, Young was touched by June. She had decided to give up the surgery. This also meant that she had decided to give up participating in the competition with President Ma. President Ma was very disappointed, not only because she had betrayed her, but more importantly, because Young had chosen to participate in the competition with that man. For such a spineless girl, President Ma decided not to hold on to her anymore. Sure enough, Young soon realized that this was a very wrong choice. Sweet talk couldn't be eaten as food. Other contestants in the competition had taken off all their clothes and lay flat on the beds of the beauty salon. Their whole bodies were coated in 28K gold. The head of the beauty pageants, President Ma, introduced, "Gold can reduce swelling on the face. This is also why gold can maintain its high value. It may seem luxurious and wasteful, but it actually has a very noticeable effect after only 3 days on the bed. Your face will become noticeably thinner." On Young's side, June told her to slap her own face with both hands, saying that this could also make her face slim down very quickly. Young's face was red and burning from the slapping. Director Yang took her students to the sauna so they could sweat and slim down their bodies. June took a ball and told Young to lie down on it and press down with her weight, saying that this could help her slim her stomach. He also said that this method was much better than the effects they had at their beauty salon. But the qualifying round of the competition was about to begin. What should they do about Young's hair? June said he had a way. Then he took Young to his competitor, President Ma's training place. June said he came to exchange some experience with President Ma, saying that he didn't go to the previous champion, Director Yang's beauty salon, because he felt that he and President Ma were on par and needed to share with each other. But Young directly told the truth. She begged President Ma to style her hair just once. She thought President Ma would kick them out, but unexpectedly, she was very generous and decided to style Young's hair, twisting, pulling, straightening, and then holding tightly. President Ma was truly a witch in the beauty industry, and she created a stunning hairstyle. Young had never seen herself look so beautiful. The girls around her couldn't help but admire her. Lion head is the classic hairstyle of Korean beauty queens, looking not only sophisticated and meaningful, but also making the face look thinner. Young was very satisfied with this hairstyle. In her rush to leave home, she forgot to bring her competition pass. She quickly arrived at the competition venue. The first challenge was a bare-faced inspection, measuring height, 3 round measurements, and body weight. But under the guidance of the beauty salon, each girl had her own little tricks. Some did 100 push-ups before their bust measurement, which would increase their bust size by 2 centimeters. Others used their breathing strength to make the measurements a bit larger. Strangely, some girls were obviously very thin, but for some reason they seemed very proud. Young not only didn't have natural talent, but she also didn't know how to use a little trickery. To Young's surprise, her bust size was 32 at home, but now the measurement was only 30. Young asked to be measured again, but the organizers flatly refused. It turned out that this was a secret operation by Batty Cosmetics, a joint sponsor of the competition, because June and the sponsor were rivals. He didn't want Young, who was representing June's company, to advance to the next round. Not only was her bust size reduced, but her height was also reduced by 2 centimeters, and her face length was measured as 8 centimeters longer. Just like that, Young's 8-level golden ratio body instantly became a 7-level body. June was completely at a loss. But at this moment, Young's father at home found her competition pass. He then knew that she had been hiding from everyone to register for the beauty pageant. They immediately decided to go to the competition venue to bring Young back. At this time, Young was still using June's method to slim her face. President Ma's trainees had professional makeup artists to take care of them carefully. Director Yang even personally helped her trainees make their faces smaller. June went to the competition organizer to reason with him. He said that Young was unfairly treated during the body proportion measurements. He requested that they be allowed to stay in the hall during the bare-faced scoring, but he had no connections and no clout. The organizer refused his request in front of everyone, citing that it violated competition rules. But under the persistent requests of reporters, he finally allowed the reporters to film the interview process. In fact, Director Yang had planned this evaluation beforehand, but sitting in front of the mirror, even if they had good points, the judges had no choice but to give fair scores. Young, relying on her stunning beauty, completely reversed the situation. At this time, Young's family had arrived at the gate of the competition venue. They absolutely had to bring Young back home before the swimsuit show. In the waiting room, Director Yang's trainees took a deep breath, held their breath, and then tightly wrapped tape around their waist to shape their bodies into an hourglass figure. Only then would it be considered perfect. Director Yang told Sunju, "Even if you can't breathe, you have to persevere. That way, when you wear the swimsuit, your body shape will be perfect, and the judges will give you high scores." This is her unique secret for creating a beautiful swimsuit beauty. Other people spend 5 million won to get plastic surgery, but she can solve it with just a roll of tape. President Ma was still patiently guiding her trainee, Kim, on how to stand gracefully and how to wear a swimsuit to highlight her body lines. Young, on the other hand, was panicking. Jun and his staff had absolutely no experience participating in competitions like this. At this time, Lee, who had a crush on Young, also hurried over. Jun immediately put a swimsuit on Young. He didn't want Lee to see his girlfriend in a swimsuit. Lee's purpose in coming was to give Young a pair of earrings. In the swimsuit competition, although no other jewelry was allowed, earrings were completely acceptable. This could also make the contestants more elegant. Jun had no way of knowing this. Although Young liked the idea of wearing earrings, she didn't want to hurt Jun's pride. She directly refused Lee's kindness. Jun realized his shortcomings, but he still insisted, saying that it wasn't worth much money and that he shouldn't reject someone's kindness like that. Young finally agreed to accept Lee's gift. But as she confidently stepped out, ready to go to battle, she coincidentally ran into her grandfather and father, who had come to stop her. Her father saw her dressed like that, and he almost fainted. Then, he didn't say a word and slapped Young straight across the face. Her father mentioned his late wife and told Young that if she persisted in participating in the competition, she would be disrespecting her deceased mother and tarnishing the reputation of their family. Young cried and said, "If Mom was still alive, she would definitely support me." She said that her father and grandfather were patriarchal, so they had prejudices against such beauty pageants. But they didn't listen to her explanations and immediately tried to drag Young home. At this moment, Young signaled to Jun with her eyes, and he understood her intention. Jun immediately pulled Young and ran away, while the others desperately held her family back. Soon, the swimsuit competition began. Young was trying to keep her bad mood from affecting her in the audience. But at this moment, several other women suddenly appeared and directly pushed Young into the bathroom. It turned out they were all President Ma's trainees. Yan was the leader. She directly pulled the breast pad off of Young's body and then used a pair of scissors she had prepared in advance to cut it into pieces. Her goal was to prevent Young from getting high scores in the swimsuit competition. By now, the competition had started. If they prepared again, they wouldn't have enough time. Young could only force a smile and prepare to go to battle. The contestants before her either posed incorrectly or were not focused. Only director Yang Sunju performed well in this round. When Young appeared, Jun, sitting below, noticed something was wrong. The size was clearly not the same before she went on stage. The judges also felt that all aspects of Young were very outstanding. But compared to the other contestants, they felt very sorry for her bust size. Soon, the final stage of advancement arrived. The first, second, and third place finishers from the regional competitions would be selected to participate in the final round. Only 5 out of the 50 contestants from the first round would be kept. The girls were all very nervous. Only the top 5 had a chance to compete for the championship, runner-up and third place. The contestants who were called were very happy. Fortunately, Young, relying on her overall score, lived up to everyone's expectations and was called into the top 5. Jun and the others finally felt relieved. Next, they would have to choose the first, second, and third place from among the 5 of them. Seon, who had been a freeloader on the subway, won third place. 2 contestants would be eliminated from the remaining 4, and the atmosphere became very tense. Then Kim, President Ma's trainee, won second place. Young was trying her best to control her anxiety, trying to maintain a smile on her face. Jun and his people in the audience were so tense that they were clenching their fists. But the MC announced Sunju's name. This meant that Young had been eliminated. Although Young was still trying to maintain a smile, tears uncontrollably welled up in her eyes. Young and Sun Na were tied for 4th place. At this moment, Jun realized that he should have listened to President Ma. Now, his company was facing bankruptcy. Everything that Young had invested had gone down the drain. Only the top 3 could participate in the final round and compete for the national championship. 4th place was meaningless. Young could only start looking for work again. But at this moment, President Ma gave a piece of paper to a reporter and asked him to pass it to the winner, Im Sunju. Sunju opened the paper and her face immediately turned pale, because President Ma had discovered her unspeakable secret. But facing the constant flashing cameras of the reporters, Sunju could only try to maintain a smile. But President Ma knew that she must be feeling confused, scared, and panicked inside. It turned out that the paper President Ma had given her said, "Did you drink malt syrup?" While the contestants were being measured, President Ma was in the dressing room and saw a plastic bottle containing a cloudy white liquid. So she took a big sip and discovered it was malt syrup. It had the effect of making a woman's breasts bigger. Drinking this before getting your bust size measured was equivalent to cheating. She had to find out who had secretly drank it. So President Ma asked her trainees to try the malt syrup. They all found it very unpleasant to drink. Then, in the dressing room before the swimsuit competition, President Ma saw Sunju searching for something everywhere after she finished putting on makeup. She kicked the plastic bottle towards Sunju. Sure enough, Sunju mistook it for her own water bottle, falling to the ground. After picking it up, she naturally drank the liquid inside. President Ma, through Sunju's expression, guessed that she was breastfeeding. This meant that she had given birth to a baby, but this beauty pageant had a clear rule that girls who had given birth were not eligible to participate. President Ma then went to find Sunju, hoping that she would voluntarily give up the title. She didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Sunju didn't know what to do. She told Director Yang that she had given birth before getting married. After Director Yang found out that President Ma had discovered this, she pretended to console and comfort Sunju, but she was actually calculating how to get rid of her. Yang, after learning this news, secretly called the organizers to report it. This would allow her to move up to third place and participate in the finals. But Yang was tied for fourth place with Sun Na. At this moment, Yang was still very sad about finding a job. Yang's father and uncle had prepared envelopes and gifts and went to the shopping mall to find Manager Park, hoping he could let Yang return to work. But this man was very disdainful of their little gift. He bluntly said in front of her family that Yang had stolen from the mall to participate in the competition. He even disrespected them directly by throwing the gift on the ground and scattering the money inside the envelope on the ground. He used this method to humiliate the two older men. Yang was still at home. She suddenly received a phone call notifying her to participate in the final round. June said, "This is the good luck that loving me has brought you, Yang." Yang was also very grateful for June's companionship. Yang didn't know that she could participate in the final round because Lee was secretly helping her behind the scenes. Yang immediately packed her bags to prepare for intensive training the next day. Yang didn't want to bother June, so she didn't let him see her off and left alone with her suitcase. The other contestants in the finals were all vying for the most expensive limited edition wedding dress. Yang had no money and was still heavily in debt. She could only find the cheapest dress on roadside advertisements. But she found out that even the cheapest one was beyond her budget. At this moment, Lee called. He had prepared expensive gowns for Yang. He didn't want the girl he liked to wear cheap rented dresses to compete. After Yang put on the expensive dress, she was truly stunning. That evening, the competition's red carpet ceremony officially began. Beautiful girls from all over the country arrived at the venue in luxury cars, wearing the most glamorous outfits. Media reporters surrounded both sides of the red carpet. Kim and Yan's combination of blue and gold attracted countless flashes. June, carrying the dress he had rented, rushed to the venue. Yang was struggling to pull her suitcase along alone. It turned out that she didn't want to hurt June's pride, so she once again refused Lee's kindness. She put on the cheap dress that June had prepared for her. Lee felt very helpless with her choice. Then, there were various rehearsals. As soon as she returned to the dormitory and was about to take a shower, Yang saw the two girls who had ruined her clothes before. They were truly caught in a trap. How coincidental that they were assigned to the same room. Yang had just entered the bathroom when a huge bucket of cold water poured over her from head to toe. She knew that this was definitely the two of them planning this. After returning to the dorm, they had a disagreement and immediately started fighting. This led to Kim joining the hair-pulling brawl. Luckily, the competition organizer appeared in time. Because they had fought in the dormitory, each person would be deducted 15 points. If they were deducted 30 points, they would automatically be eliminated from the competition. Soon, the organizers announced that contestants were strictly prohibited from smoking, drinking, or being with men during the intensive training period. And the main sponsor of this competition, BDI Cosmetics, would provide cosmetics. The final winner of the competition would have to sign a contract to become BTI's designated model. Young objected. "There's no such clause in the beauty pageant agreement, and I don't agree to this condition, because I'm representing June's cosmetics company in this competition." This made the organizers and sponsors of the competition very unhappy with her. The sponsor went to find Young and June. He directly said, if she doesn't want to sign the contract, Young shouldn't think about continuing to participate in the competition. But the difficulties and challenges Young faced were just beginning. Yesterday, Young was attacked with eggs, which was a protest by some people against the beauty pageant. They accused beauty pageants of being discriminatory based on appearance. They chanted and demanded that the competition be stopped. And then, during the swimsuit photo shoot, because Young had a conflict with a sponsor, she was assigned to the pool and wasn't allowed to wear makeup for the photo shoot. Moreover, during the photo shoot, they asked Young to lie down on the pool mat. Young tried many times, but she couldn't lie down on it. After returning to the dormitory, she found that someone had tampered with her high heels again. Even worse, Sun Na had secretly put irritants into Young's cosmetics. Luckily, Kim reminded her. If she had applied the irritating cosmetics to her face, she would definitely have been unable to continue competing. In the singing and dancing rehearsal the next day, both Soo Yeon and Kim didn't perform very well. Young, on the other hand, revealed a smug smile, because this was clearly a gift from the universe for Young, who had extensive performance experience. Sure enough, Young's performance was clearly better than all the other contestants. Soo Yeon and Sunju, who saw Young as a thorn in their side, became even more envious and resentful, gritting their teeth. The director immediately asked for a fan to be brought over and blown forcefully at Young's hair. Young's hair became even more fluffy and fluttered in the wind. The performance was full of soul, and this was the result of Young's day and night training for the competition. Soon, it was time for the judges' meeting before the competition. The investor Lee and Young's former boss, Manager Park, as sponsors, were also invited as judges to evaluate the scores. They would determine the contestants' total scores before the match. The first criterion for evaluating the swimsuit was the collarbone. If the judge prepared to give Young high points, she received a warning. As a result, she gave the high score to someone else. The second criterion was the neck curve. The focus of this criterion was the neck curve and the lines behind the back. Simply put, the higher the neck, the more beautiful it is, and the neck circumference should be just right. Half the waist circumference is the most perfect measurement. The shoulders should be straight and look best when they are curved at about 5 degrees. All the judges were using these criteria to score the contestants. Manager Park held up the first scorecard, and he gave Young the lowest score for everything. But luckily, Lee gave Young the highest score for everything, which balanced things out. After the scoring was finished, Manager Park wasn't done yet. He told Young that this was the consequence of not listening to him in the beginning. He also hinted to Young that if she agreed, she could still. This was clearly playing a dirty game. Young was thinking of giving him a good beating. At this moment, Lee, to avoid suspicion, called Young and told her her total score so that she could relax and finish the next few rehearsals. Soon, all the contestants appeared on stage one by one. During the singing and dancing under Director Yang's arrangement, Kim deliberately pretended to fall. Her goal was to grab the camera's attention. This resulted in no shots of Seon. At this time, Young was backstage, watching the footage of her loved ones. Finally, she had her family's support. This made Young very touched. At this moment, the contestants began their amazing performance. Director Yang cheered for her contestants from the audience. This made President Ma speechless. June was very worried about Young's performance. Soon, the first team finished their performance, and the second team immediately began theirs. Chai's pirouette made everyone in the audience stare at her. The next person to appear was Young. It has to be said that Young's performance on stage was truly amazing. Even though there were hundreds of thousands of spectators in the audience, she didn't feel stage fright at all. Even though she was wearing shoes that were several inches high, her dance steps were still natural and graceful. Her performance made Director Yang speechless, but the truly interesting part was still to come. June, sitting in the audience, was happy as a fool. As soon as Young opened her mouth to sing, the entire hall was stunned. Even though she had to sing and dance for a long time, it didn't affect her singing. President Ma also felt very regretful that she hadn't been able to sign a contract with Young at the beginning. All the spectators in the audience were cheering for her. The choreography from 26 years ago was unexpectedly so moving. It made people completely immersed. President Ma actually felt very worried for her contestants. In terms of singing, dancing, expression, and charisma, Kim couldn't compare to Young. The finals of the Miss Korea pageant were about to begin. In the makeup room, all the girls were making the most of every minute to prepare for the competition's final round. Young, on the other hand, was carrying a makeup bag. She still hadn't secured a makeup position. President Ma felt suspicious. Why don't you even have an assistant? The competition is about to start. Where did that guy June disappear to? Young just smiled and said, "I'm fine on my own." President Ma wanted to help her, but she couldn't leave, so she could only remind Young, go to the bathroom and find a mirror to put on makeup. So, while the other contestants were being carefully made up in the makeup room, Young had to carry her own makeup bag, holding her dress in her hand, rushing to the bathroom. At this moment, Lee brought a makeup artist to find her. He knew that that guy June was unreliable at crucial moments. But unexpectedly, Young refused him again. She knew that Lee had feelings for her, so she didn't want June to misunderstand anything. She believed June would be here soon, then she left stubbornly. After entering the bathroom, she started doing her own makeup and hair. At this time, the final night was about to begin. Young's family had also arrived at the venue. With the appearance of the MC, the competition officially began. The contestants took turns introducing themselves and making their corresponding competition statements. When it was Young's turn, her genuine and humble expression made a good impression on the judges. Soon, it was time for the final round, the swimsuit round that everyone loved to watch the most. After careful observation by the judges, the swimsuit round scores were quickly revealed. San, who had been a freeloader on the subway, received 8 points. Suang, a professional dancer, received 7.9 points. Next up was Young. Because Young had trained very hard and had been standing in place for many years, her legs were very straight. Her waist was very slender, and whether it was her calves or thighs, they were all very firm. Although her upper body had some shortcomings, her overall proportions were very harmonious. In the end, the judges gave her a score of 8.4. But don't celebrate too early, because Kim, with her radiant aura, appeared next. She had a prestigious university degree. Kim was very confident, and she received the highest score of 8.5. Young, relying on her high score, smoothly advanced to the top 15, a halfway point. During the break between the rounds, Young dialed June's pager and sent him a message, but she didn't receive a reply at all. The judges were meeting to discuss how to break the traditional beauty pageant rules. The scoring criteria for the contestants were no longer limited to high educational qualifications and good jobs. For fairness, they had to give opportunities to contestants who had jobs at the grassroots level, and they should also give extra points to contestants with natural beauty who had not had plastic surgery. This would prevent them from having the same surgically altered faces in the future. This also gave Young more opportunities. Soon, Young advanced to the top. Kim also smoothly advanced to the announcement list. Next, Young was chosen for the special award from BTI Cosmetics. San and 2 other contestants tied for 3rd place. At this moment, there were still 2 other contestants on stage. The contestant from Daegu won 2nd place. This meant that one of Young and Chi would win the Miss Korea title, and the other would naturally be the runner-up. After the MC joked around for a while, he began to announce the results. Sure enough, heaven helped those who helped themselves, and Young finally beat Kim and successfully won the Miss Korea title. This result shocked Young's family. They couldn't believe that their daughter and niece had actually won the Miss Korea title. Those who were surprised included Manager Park, the subordinate who had dropped fart in the elevator, now wearing a crown and becoming Miss Korea. At the same time that Young received the Miss Korea title, she also received a huge prize of 20 million won, along with a 50K natural diamond crown. And next year, she would represent South Korea to participate in the international beauty pageant. But until the very end, Young didn't see June. It turned out that June's business had failed, and he had a huge debt. The creditors took all the equipment from his factory. June was also beaten up. At the press conference afterwards, June finally appeared. At this time, President Ma also saw him. June even boasted to her, "We won the championship." President Ma directly questioned him. When Young needed someone's help, he disappeared without a trace. Now that she has won the championship, he shows up. I really don't understand what Young sees in him. But June said, "There are things you haven't thought of waiting for you." Sure enough, Young saw that June was injured, and after learning that the bad guys had taken all the equipment from the factory, she directly took out a 20 million won stock certificate and gave it to June, encouraging him to start over. June pushed back, but finally accepted it. Not only that, he later became Young's manager. After Young became Miss Korea, her value doubled. Major and minor television stations all vied to interview her. She received countless advertising invitations. No matter whether it was a famous director or a staff member, they all treated her very politely. But Young didn't buy clothes or bags with the money she earned from advertising and endorsements. She gave it all to June. Today, Young suddenly received a call from Manager Park. He also invited Young to be the image spokesperson for his department store building. Young went to the department store again. She felt very touched. This place had eliminated the elevator operator position. Standing in the elevator brought back many memories. If she hadn't been brave enough to participate in the beauty pageant, if she had given up halfway because of the difficulties, she might still be somewhere, continuing to work as an elevator operator, or perhaps she would still be like before, even when she was so hungry that she ate an egg. She would be scolded by the manager. Now, the general manager of the department store had to make an appointment with her manager to meet Young, and he had to invite her to the luxurious conference room. Manager Park even changed his previous arrogant and harsh tone, smiling and being respectful and cautious. The next day, he even brought a gift bag to Young's house and vowed to apologize to her family for what happened before. He also took out Young's previously deducted salary and returned it to her. Manager Park kept apologizing to Young for his previous outrageous actions. Young told him, "First, return the money you took from the other employees and return it to them. Then we can talk about signing the contract." He immediately said, "I will do what you ask as quickly as possible." The story ends here. As long as you try your best, heaven will be on your side. As long as your position is high enough, you'll find that everyone around you is good. Alright, this movie ends here. Thank you for watching the entire video. Goodbye and see you in the next exciting episode.